Hi guys, this is Hirosaki. This story is all about what if Naruto was the bodyguard of Azula. Naruto is banished from Konoha, but gives them the slip and boards a ship. Soon after, he is shipwrecked on Ember Island, and is saved by Azula. 3 years later, Naruto is Azula's bodyguard while she hunts for the Avatar, but did he see the last of Konoha? Before we start, kindly like and subscribe to this channel, and look over the description box for the author of this amazing storyline. Welcome aboard. Chapter 26, Grudges and Promises. Location, Fire Nation. They had made camp on the top of a small mountain. They sat around the campfire, telling ghost stories, as it was the perfect kind of night to do. Sokka had just finished with his story, much to Aang and Toph's curiosity. Well, he asked them. I think I like the man with a sword for a hand better, Aang told him. This one didn't have the same level of scariness as that one. Not my greatest, I'll admit, he agreed. Water tribe slumber parties must stink, Toph commented. Though it could be better than any air nomad stories Twinkle Toes have told us. Aang grinned sheepishly. Since we're always in the temples, we don't have any interesting stories to tell other than the ones about where a monk discovers some secret passageway within the air temples. No, wait. I've got one. Katara said from where she sat in front of the fire. And this is a true Southern Water Tribe story. Is this one of those a friend of my cousin knew some guy that this happened to stories? Sokka asked her as he sat down, sticking the tip of his jian into the ground. No, it happened to Mom. That got everyone's attention. One winter when Mom was a girl, a snowstorm buried the whole village for weeks. A month later, Mom noticed she hadn't seen her friend Nini since the storm. So, Mom and some others went to check on Nini's family. When they got there, no one was home. Just a fire flickering in the fireplace remained. While the men went out to search, Mom stayed at the house. When she was alone, she heard a voice, "It's so cold, and I can't get warm." Mom turned and saw Nini standing by the fire. She was blue like she had been frozen. Mom ran outside for help, but when everyone came back, Nini was gone. Where'd she go? Her brother asked, desperately trying to hide behind the stump he was sitting against. That story was creepy, and he was sure that he had seen that house. No one knows, she answered. Nini's house remains empty to this day, but sometimes, people see smoke coming up from the chimney, like little Nini is still trying to get warm. The silence that followed felt almost scaring to them. Wait! Toph suddenly cried, placing her hand on the ground. Guys, did you hear that? She stood up as the others held each other in fright. I hear people under the mountain. And they're screaming. Nice try, Sokka said after forcing himself to calm down and let go of his sister. Akela, however, just rolled his eyes at the tribesman. No, I'm serious. I hear something. You're probably just jumpy from the ghost stories, Katara told her. She knew that she was. The blind earthbender would have protested, had she not felt a change. It just stopped, she said. All right, now I'm getting scared, Aang declared. Hello, children, a voice said from out of nowhere, making Sokka, Aang, and Katara scream in fright and hug Toph. The voice came from an old lady standing in the shadows of the forest. Sorry to frighten, she told them, walking into the firelight. My name is Hama. You children shouldn't be out in the forest by yourselves at night. I have an inn nearby. Why don't you come back there for some spiced tea and warm beds? Yes, please, Sokka said. She walked away and they followed. You got everything, Azula? Naruto asked, standing by her door. He was watching her getting dressed and getting everything she needed for the day. Yes, she answered, turning to face him. Where are the others? They're already waiting for us. Then let's go. She walked out of her room and Naruto followed her. They walked down the corridor before running into Yao Jing. They didn't say anything and neither did she. She just kept on walking, and so did they. I think that's the first time she didn't at least try and kill you or me with a glare, the blonde remarked as he took a quick look back. You're right. It feels somewhat weird, Azula agreed as she looked at him. According to the servants, Chun's photo is always with her, he informed her. It had fallen to the floor one morning, and the maid knelt down to pick it up. Yao Jing almost killed her for doing that until she apologized profusely and fled. Are you sure? They would never lie about something like that. She's gotten possessive about it. And that was something he never would have thought she'd do. He had thought that she would burn the photo. Ironic, isn't it? She asked. That she'd be possessive about the photo of the mother she didn't like when she met her. I would be too, if I had one. She flinched when she heard that. Sorry. Why do you people keep apologizing? He asked with a joking smile. You're beginning to make it sound like you murdered my parents. Even though it was a joke, she still winced a little. Thankfully, they met up with everyone else before he saw it. There you guys are. Ty Lee said with a small pout from where she stood on the steps. It was obvious that the acrobat had been waiting a while. Sorry, she wanted to make sure she had everything, Naruto told her. Azula didn't say anything in reply. Guys? Do we have to do this? Cory asked hesitantly from where she sat on the steps. She hadn't planned on doing this and quite frankly, she was still unsure about. Yes, we have to, Mai said, standing next to Zuko. Come on, Cory, it's your last day here in the Fire Nation, Temari told her. We might as well spend it having fun. I know, but I was supposed to stay a few more weeks, she said sadly. That had been the plan. I'm sorry that your father sent you a letter saying he wants you to come home earlier than expected, Cory. But what's happened has happened, Azula told her. Now let's go have some fun. Time for shopping. Cheered Ty Lee. The girls all started down the steps leading away from the palace. The guys just stayed there for a couple of more minutes. Men, Naruto said to Zuko, Gaara, and Kankuro with a solemn voice. This will probably be the last chance to pray to whatever deity or spirit that gives you strength. I'd recommend praying to them because we will soon be shopping with girls. Hey you guys. Hurry up. Cory called from down the steps. We'll be right down. Naruto told her before looking back at the other three guys. They all said a quick prayer and joined them. Thanks for letting us stay here tonight. Katara told Hama as they all sat around a table inside the inn. You have a lovely inn. Aren't you sweet? Hama said. You know you should be careful. People have been disappearing in those woods you were camping in, she told them as she sat down in her own chair. What do you mean disappearing? Sokka asked. When the moon turns full, people walk in, and they don't come out. Who wants more tea? She asked them, holding up the kettle. They all looked at her with nervous expressions. Don't worry, you are all completely safe here. Why don't I show you to your rooms and you can get a good night's rest? She took them to their rooms. They went to sleep, or at least tried. Sokka was kept awake by the creaking of the house. After a particular loud one, he grabbed his jian and drew it. Akela, having heard the jian being drawn, opened his eyes and raised his head. His expression pretty much said, "Would you put that thing away? I'm trying to sleep here." "Sorry, Akela," he said, putting the jian back in its scabbard. "But this place is creepy. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to fall asleep." The wolf just rolled his eyes and put his head back down. He went back to sleep and within 15 minutes, Sokka had joined him. When he opened them next, he was halfway on the floor and saw both Hama and Katara standing over him. "Time to go shopping," declared Hama. "I hate shopping with girls," Zuko, Gaara, Kankuro, and Naruto thought in unison as they walked behind the girls. As the guys in the group, they were the pack mules. Zuko and Naruto got lucky when Mai and Azula respectively targeted them as their pack mules. Given that they didn't shop much and as such, didn't buy every single thing they laid eyes on, their loads were fairly light. Kankuro and Gaara weren't so lucky. Look, another store," Ty Lee said, pointing at said store. "We noticed," Naruto told her dryly as everyone turned to look at the store. "It's another clothes store," Corey pointed out to the acrobat. "We've already been to plenty of those." "But it's not just any clothes store," Ty Lee said slyly. She knew what kind of store it was, having been there several times before. "Oh, please don't tell me it's not what I think it is," the guys thought again in unison. They were really hoping that it wasn't what they thought it was. "It's an undergarment store." They walked through the marketplace carrying baskets of food. Sokka used his Jian to carry his. "That Mr. Yao seems to have a thing for you," Katara noted to the old innkeeper. "Maybe we should go back and see if he'll give us some free Komodo sausages? You would have me use my feminine charms to take advantage of that poor man?" Hama asked her with a raised eyebrow before cracking a smile. "I think you and I are going to get along swimmingly. You won't have any ash bananas till next week?" They heard a customer ask a shopkeeper as they passed by. "Well, I have to send the boy to Hinghwa Island to get them, and it's a 2-day trip," the shopkeeper explained. "Oh right. Tomorrow's the full moon." The customer sounded nervous when he said that. "Exactly, I can't lose another delivery boy in the woods." "Something is going on here in this town," Sokka stated. He, Aang and Toph were a little behind Katara and Hama, so they could talk amongst themselves. "Maybe they offended a spirit?" Aang suggested. "I bet if we take a little walk around town, we'll find out what these people did to offend it." "Not everything that happens to people have to do with the spirits," Aang, the tribesman, reminded him. "I know that, but I can still help people." "It's what I do," he said with an easy grin. "I never said you didn't. Why don't you take all those things back to the inn?" Hama suggested to the group, stopping in the middle of the street. "I just have to run a couple more errands. I'll be back in a little while." "This is a mysterious little town you have here," Sokka told her right to her face. "Mysterious town for mysterious children," she replied cryptically before walking away. They made their way back to the inn and started to put the food away. "That Hama seems a little strange," Sokka told them as he placed a basket on the table. "Like she knows something, or she's hiding something." "That's ridiculous," Katara replied as she placed her basket on the counter while Aang and Toph put the rest of the baskets on the ground. "She's a nice woman who took us in and gave us a place to stay. She kinda reminds me of Gran. But what did she mean by that comment, mysterious children?" he asked his sister. "Gee, I don't know," she said sarcastically. "Maybe because she found 4 strange kids camping in the woods at night? Isn't that a little mysterious?" He still didn't buy it. "I'm going to take a look around." He walked away to look around the house. The other 3 couldn't just stand there. They went after him. Sokka, what are you doing?" she asked him as he climbed a staircase. "You can't just snoop around someone's house." "It'll be fine," he told her as he went looking through rooms, trying to find something out of the ordinary for someone from the Fire Nation. "She could be home any minute," Aang pointed out. "They would have a hell of a time trying to explain themselves if they got caught." "Sokka, you're going to get us all in trouble," Katara told him. "And this is just plain rude." "I'm not finished yet," he replied as he tried to open a cupboard. "Come on." He managed to open it, revealing puppets shaped like humans. He was surprised, but managed to hold himself from stumbling back and drawing his Jian. "Okay, I know Kankuro used puppets, but that's still pretty creepy," Aang admitted. The puppets before them looked lifelike, almost too lifelike. "So, she's got a hobby." "There's nothing wrong with that," Katara reasoned as Sokka closed the cabinet and kept on walking. "Sokka, you've looked enough." Hama will be back soon, she tried to tell her brother. He climbed the stairs into the attic and tried to open a door, only to find it locked. She's just an ordinary puppet-loving innkeeper, huh? He asked. Then why does she have a locked door up here? Probably to keep people like you from snooping through her stuff. Sometimes she wondered if her brother didn't understand the concept of the word privacy. We'll see. The tribesman looked through the keyhole to see what was inside. It's empty, except for a little chest, he told them all. Maybe it's treasure, Toph suggested. Sokka drew his jian and used it to pick the lock. Sokka, what are you doing? Katara demanded. You're breaking into a private room. I have to see what's in there. His curiosity was aroused and damn it, he was going to satisfy it. The lock clinked and the door opened. We shouldn't be doing this, Aang said as they walked into the room. Sokka ignored him as he picked up the chest and tried to open it. Maybe there's a key around here, the tribesman said, realizing it was locked. Ooh, hand it over. Toph told him. He handed her the chest. She took off her bracelet and bent it into the shape of a key, which she stuck into the lock and began to work on it. Come on, come on. This isn't as easy as it looks, she remarked while Katara kept looking on nervously. Guys, I don't know about this, Aang said. This is crazy, I'm leaving. Katara declared. Suit yourself, Sokka told her. Do it, Toph. As she walked away, Toph successfully managed to pick the lock, opening it. Katara came back as they began to open it. I'll tell you what's in the box, Hama said from behind them, catching them by surprise. They turned around to face her while Sokka tried to hide it behind his back. She walked and then waited. He relented and handed the box to her. She took it, opened it and pulled out a comb. It's an old comb? Sokka asked, completely surprised by the fact. It's my greatest treasure, she told him. It's the last thing I own from growing up in the Southern Water Tribe. What she said stunned both Sokka and Katara. You're from the Southern Water Tribe? Katara repeated, making sure she didn't hear wrong. Just like you, she said, putting the comb back in the box. How did you know? They had tried to keep it a secret from everyone they had met in the Fire Nation. I heard you talking around your campfire. But why didn't you tell us? Sokka asked, suspicious. Ever since he met her, he felt that something felt off about her. The fact that she was from the Southern Water Tribe did nothing to quash that feeling. I wanted to surprise you, she told them. I bought all this food today, so I could fix you a big Water Tribe dinner. Of course, I can't get all the ingredients I need here, but ocean kumquats are a lot like sea prunes if you stew them long enough. Great, Aang muttered, remembering his last experience with sea prunes. It was not pleasant. I knew I felt a bond with you right away, Katara said. She knew she had been right when she felt that Hama felt like Gran. Sorry we were sneaking around, Sokka told Hama, his voice full of apology. Apology accepted, she replied. Now let's get cooking. No, Naruto said. Please, Ty Lee asked them with a pout. No, Zuko said. It's for Cory, the acrobat urged them. I don't think we actually need them in the store, Cory said. She knew that she didn't need them in there. There, you see? Kankuro asked Ty Lee. We'll stay out here, Gaara said, crossing his arms and silently daring the girls to say something in protest. Forget it, Ty Lee. They're not going to come into the store for undergarments, Mai said. She didn't know why her bubbly friend wanted them to come in the first place, considering what happened last time with Naruto. Thank you, Mai, Naruto told her. But having them in there is half the fun. Ty Lee complained. For you, accused Kankuro. He did not see any fun for men inside that kind of store. Ty Lee, we do have an excuse not to go in there. It's for the sake of our health, the blonde explained to her. How's that an excuse? It sounded like a weak one to her. Look at us. He gestured to him and the other men in the group. We're hot. If we go into that store, one of us might realize that we might need to get something. So, we'll grab it and go to the back to try it on. And I'm pretty sure you remember what happened the last time I did that in a clothes store. Imagine that times 4. He's got a point, Ty Lee, Corey said with a light blush on her cheeks. She had heard that story and she could see it happening. But she didn't want that kind of chaos. Let's just go inside, please. Fine, she said with annoyance. They walked into the store and began to browse. What did they think we were going to do to them? As if to answer her question, a small knife flew and slammed into the wooden wall in front of her. Attached to the knife was a piece of paper. As the others gathered around her, she looked at the piece of paper which read, "Do I have to list the reasons I gave at Kozan again? Naruto. How does he keep doing that?" She demanded. "You're never going to find out, Ty Lee, so drop it," Azula told her before walking away to look at something. After Aang had run to the shed to feed Appa and Momo, everyone sat down to a water tribe dinner. "I'd steer clear of the sea prunes," the air nomad whispered to Toph. "I thought they were ocean kumquats," she replied, not bothering to whisper back. "Close enough. Who wants 5-flavor soup?" Hama asked. They all raised their hands, except for Toph, who just shrugged. To their surprise, she bent the soup out of the dish and into their bowls. "You're a waterbender!" Katara exclaimed in delight. "I've never met a waterbender from our tribe." "That's because the Fire Nation wiped them all out," she replied sadly. "I was the last one." "So how did you end up out here?" Sokka asked her. That part was the one that was making him curious. "I was stolen from my home," she said as the memories flashed through her mind. "It was over 60 years ago when the raid started. They came again and again, each time rounding up more of our waterbenders and taking them captive. We did our best to hold them off, but our numbers dwindled as the raids continued. Finally, I too was captured. I was led away in chains, the last waterbender of the Southern Water Tribe." Katara walked over and put her hands on her shoulders in comfort. "They put us in terrible prisons here in the Fire Nation. I was the only one who managed to escape." "How did you get away?" Sokka asked, still suspicious of her. "And why did you stay in the Fire Nation? Wouldn't she have wanted to come home?" "I'm sorry," she said after a moment of silence. "It's too painful to talk about it anymore." "We completely understand," Katara told her. "We lost our mother in a raid." "Oh, you poor things," she patted the young waterbender's hand. "I can't tell you what it means to meet you," Katara told her. "It's an honor. You're a hero." "I never thought I'd meet another Southern waterbender," she replied with a smile. "I'd like to teach you what I know so you can carry on the Southern tradition when I'm gone." "Yes. Yes, of course." The young waterbender cried excitedly, standing up and clasping her hands together. "To learn about my heritage, it would mean everything to me." "Hold that thought," Sokka said, standing up. "Sorry, Hama, but our group needs to have a talk." "Please, don't let me stop you," she told him, the smile still on her face. The 4 of them, including Akela, walked out of the house and into the shed. "What's this all about, Sokka?" Aang asked. The tribesman turned to face the group once the door to the shed was closed. "Katara, I want you to stay away from Hama. Something doesn't feel right about her," he told his sister. "Enough with your paranoia, Sokka," she said with exasperated annoyance. "Hama is one of us. She's from our tribe. If they couldn't trust someone from their tribe, being a tribe would lose all meaning. Then why didn't she go back after escaping the prison?" he asked her. "Why did she stay here?" "That's it. I've had enough of your stupid and baseless paranoia," she told her brother, starting a rant. Tomorrow morning, I am making Appa fly you back home where you can. Smack. The sound echoed through the shed. Aang, Toph, Appa, Momo, and even Akela were surprised and caught off guard at what just happened. Sokka had simply walked to his sister and slapped her across the face. Katara, for once in your life, you are going to shut up and you are going to listen to your big brother, he told her with complete seriousness. She was too shocked at what happened to speak. It is true that I have been paranoid, I'm willing to admit that. But I've been paranoid because I have been worried about your safety, and then the safety of this team. You seem to have gained the notion that every time I'm paranoid about something, I'm wrong. When I told you what I felt about Colonel Ching, you ignored me and told me to grow up. When I made my feelings about Shu Yi known repeatedly, you told me to stop being paranoid, and I tried that. Look what happened both times. You led Colonel Ching to the colony, and if Naruto didn't risk his life to kill the colonel, everyone in Kozan would have been killed. Shu Yi turned out to be Naruto, and had you listened, we might have not lost Ba Sing Se. You need to get your head out of the clouds, Katara, and stay away from Hama. Hot tears of angry and humiliation fell from Katara's face. I am going to learn what Hama has to teach me, she told him. Once I'm done, I expect you to apologize before I have Appa send you home. She turned around and stomped out of the shed, slamming the door open. They left the undergarment store and kept on walking through the streets, looking at random things. Hey look, a new weapon store, Mai said, pointing at the store in question. Let's see what they got, Cory said, a little excited to see what they had. They walked in and started looking around. Hey, Zuko, Temari said as she and the Prince of the Fire Nation looked at the swords. Have you ever thought of getting a new pair of Dao swords? I made the swords I have, Temari, he replied. Why would I throw them away? She just shrugged her shoulders in reply. Also, I have the distinct feeling if that I throw them, they'd get pissed. They'd get pissed? She asked, unsure if she had heard him right. Actually, it's singular, not plural, he amended. What are you talking about? I'm not sure, but I think that my swords are somehow sentient. Like there's a spirit living in them, he tried to explain. It sounded ridiculous, but it was the only way he could explain it. How can a sword be sentient? One word, Temari, Samahata, Naruto said, having overheard them. Oh, good point. She had forgotten about that infamous sword. Cory was looking at lengths of chain for her spiked meteor hammer when she noticed something interesting. She was looking at a black leather belt. It was beautifully crafted, but they noticed the two holes in the side. That's good work right there, she noted, getting everyone's attention. It's a prototype, the shop owner explained as he came over to them. The belt has dagger scabbards built into it. It might have a little extra weight, but you'll still be able to fight with it on. Why has no one bought it? Mai asked. Nobody really uses daggers around here. They've already got a sword, a pike, or fire bending. He walked away, going back to his store. Why don't you buy it, Mai? Kankuro suggested. You use daggers. I use knives, she told him pointedly. There is a difference. What about you, Azula? Cory asked the princess of the Fire Nation. You've trained with daggers. True, but father believes that I only need my fire bending, she explained. He knows that I've practiced with daggers, but that's it. He'll be furious if I bought something that had to do with daggers. While she talked, Zuko and Mai shared a look with each other and nodded. That's a pity, Temari said. Let's keep going, Ty Lee said. They all walked out of the store and back onto the street. Katara was determined to prove her brother wrong, going with Hama to learn what she had to offer. They walked away from the village, so they could have privacy. They soon arrived at what appeared to be an open field, filled with small flowers and large patches of grass. Growing up in the South Pole, Hama began, waterbenders are totally at home surrounded by snow and ice and seas. But as you've probably noticed on your travels, this isn't the case wherever you go. I know, Katara agreed. When we were stranded in the desert, I felt like there was almost nothing I could do. She had never felt so helpless until then. That's why you have to learn to control water wherever it exists. I'd even used my own sweat for waterbending, the young waterbender told the old waterbender. That's very resourceful, Katara, she praised the girl. You're thinking like a true master. But did you know you could even pull water out of thin air? She bent water out of the atmosphere and covered her fingers with it. You've got to keep an open mind, Katara, she said as the water froze, turning into ice and giving her claws. There's water in places you never think about. She hurled the claws at a tree and saw that they had struck the bark. Katara watched it all in amazement. This has got to be the nicest natural setting in the Fire Nation, Aang declared as he looked down at a river and the surrounding area. I don't see anything that would make a spirit mad around here. So, it could be a human, Sokka pointed out as he stood by a tree with Akela at his side. Or maybe the moon spirit just turned mean, Toph suggested from where she stood next to Sokka and Akela. Toph, the moon spirit is a gentle, loving lady, the tribesman told the blind earthbender. She would never do something like this. And you would this how? She asked him. I knew her when she was still human. That was the only he was going to say. Thinking of you still hurt. Aang noticed a nearby villager walking by. Excuse me, sir, he said, running over to him. Can you tell us anything about the spirit that's been stealing people? Only one man ever saw it and lived, the villager answered after thinking it over. And that's Old Man Ding. Where does Old Man Ding live? Toph asked him, grabbing his arm to see if he was lying or not. Wow, Katara said as she and Hamel walked through a field of flowers. These flowers are beautiful. They're called fire lilies, Hama told her. They only bloom a few weeks a year. But they're one of my favorite things about living here. And like all plants and all living things, they're filled with water. I met a waterbender who lived in a swamp and could control the vines by bending the water inside. It had been one of the most impressive displays of waterbending she had ever seen. You can take even further. The old innkeeper spun in a circle, bending the water out of the flowers, and then hurled it at a rock, cutting it to pieces. That was incredible. Katara exclaimed before looking down at the withered flowers. It's a shame about the lilies though. They're just flowers, Hama said dismissively. When you're a waterbender in a strange land, you do what you must to survive. Tonight, I'll teach you the ultimate technique of waterbending. It can only be done during the full moon when your bending is at its peak. But isn't that dangerous? She asked with concern. I thought people have been disappearing around here during the full moon. Oh, Katara. 2 waterbender masters beneath a full moon? I don't think we have anything to worry about. She began to walk out of the field and Katara followed. All in all, Naruto and the others had a fun day out on the town. If they had been able to take a photo, they would have taken several. It was the kind of day that made it seem like there was nothing wrong with their lives. All they had to do was to have fun and be with their friends. But even the day had to obey one of the ancient laws of the universe: all good things must come to an end. That was great. Ty Lee cheered as they walked back to the palace. Yeah, it was, Temari agreed. Despite being a pack mule, I'd have to agree, Kankuro said. The stuff he was lugging was liable to put a cramp somewhere in his back. Stop complaining, Kankuro, she told her brother. I saw you at that puppet store. You were surrounded by teenager girls. You looked like you were enjoying yourself. Actually, I was trying to make sure I didn't make an ass of myself, he replied. If he had done so, the puppeteer corps would never let him live it down. What I found funny was that Gaara was swarmed by little girls, Naruto said with laughter in his voice. You looked like a big, red-headed teddy bear, he told the Kazekage. It was kinda cute to watch, Ty Lee admitted. The little girls had all but swarmed over him. But he handled them well and didn't favor one over the other. When it was time for him to leave, they almost had to pull him out of there. I thought of it as practice, Gaara told them. Practice for what? Asked Mai. What could that have been practice for? For when I become a father. They were all surprised when they heard that. That hadn't been an answer they were expecting. So, you're planning to be the father of a horde of girls? You're going to have your work cut out for you, Gaara, Naruto said, making the others laugh. But in all seriousness, I think you would make a great dad. Thanks, Naruto. I think you would too. That comment managed to make both Naruto and Azula blush at the same time. Nobody asked why Azula was blushing, they weren't that dense. Well, I know today was fun and all, Cory said, getting everyone's attention. I better go back to my room and pack. The mood felt somber. Everyone had just remembered that she was leaving. Come on, Cory, Azula said, placing her hand in the girl's shoulder. I'll help you pack. Thanks, Azula. The two of them walked away and the others dispersed, taking what they bought with them. Night had fallen at the village and mostly every villager who lived there were inside. Sokka, Aang, Toph and Akela walked through the streets, looking for a specific person. Old Man Ding? Asked Aang as they found the man they were looking for. The man turned towards them and swung his hammer, accidentally hitting his thumb. Dang blame it. He swore before looking at them. What? Can't you see I'm busy? We've got a full moon rising. And why does everyone call me that? I'm not that old. He tried to pick a board and failed. Well, I'm young at heart. Aang decided to help him with the board. Not ready to get snapped up by some moon monster yet at least. We wanted to ask you about that, Sokka said as he picked up the hammer and started hammering in the nails. Did you get a good look at the spirit that took you? Aang asked the old man as they held the board in place on the window. Didn't see no spirit, just felt something come over me like I was possessed. Forced me to start walking toward the mountain, he pointed at said mountain. I tried to fight it, but I couldn't control my own limbs. It just about had me into a cave up there. And I looked up at the moon for what I thought would be my last glimpse of light. But then, the sun started to rise, and I got control of myself again. I just hightailed it away from that mountain as quick as I could. I don't think a spirit would take people to a mountain, Sokka said. Oh no! Exclaimed Toph suddenly. I did hear people screaming under the mountain. The missing villagers must still be there. They looked at the mountain and, without saying a word to Old Man Ding, sprinted towards it and then up it. I can hear them, she said after putting a hand on the ground when they were properly on the mountain. They're this way. They ran off into a different direction, the one where Toph was running towards. Can you feel the power the full moon brings? Hama asked Katara as they walked through the woods on the mountain. She stopped and inhaled through her nose. For generations, it has blessed waterbenders with its glow, allowing us to do incredible things. The veins in her arms bulged out, making Katara look at her with small surprise. I've never felt more alive. This is the place, Toph declared as they stopped in front of a cave. I can't see anything down there, Sokka said. It just looked like a black hole leading into the mountain. That's why you have me. She grabbed his hand. Let's go. They jumped into the cave and went forward until they ran into a metal wall and door. Undeterred, she bent the metal door off its hinges and knocked it down. They ran down the tunnel with Aang and Sokka carrying torches. They soon found the missing villagers, chained to columns. We're saved. One villager said. Toph got to work getting the people out of their chains, using her space rock to pick the locks. I didn't know a spirit made prisons like this, Aang noted. Who brought you here? He asked the villagers. It was no spirit, a woman said. It was a witch, a second villager agreed. A witch? Asked Sokka, already getting a bad feeling. What do you mean? She seems like a normal old woman, but she controls people like some dark puppet master. the woman explained as Toph undid her shackles. He realized what she meant. Hama. Yes, the innkeeper. The first villager agreed. I knew it. I knew there was something off about her. Why didn't he act on it sooner? We have to stop Hama. Aang declared. I'll get these people out of here, Toph told the two of them. You go. Akela, stay with her. Sokka told the wolf before handing his torch to the woman and running back down the tunnel with Aang. As a cat-owl hooted and flew away, they faced the moon. What I'm about to show you, Hama told Katara. I discovered in that wretched Fire Nation prison. She could still remember what happened to her. The guards were always careful to keep any water away from us. They piped in dry air and had us suspended away from the ground. Before giving us any water, they would bind our hands and our feet so we couldn't bend. Any sign of trouble was met with cruel retribution. And yet each month, I felt the full moon enriching me with its energy. There had to be something I could do to escape. Then I realized that where there is life, there is water. The rats that scurried across the floor of my cage were nothing more than skins filled with liquid, and I passed years developing the skill that would lead to my escape. Blood bending, what she said made Katara nervous. Controlling the water in another body, enforcing your own will over theirs. She remembered the years of practicing and developing the skill with perfect clarity. Once I had mastered the rats, I was ready for the men. And during the next full moon, I walked free for the first time in decades. My cell unlocked by the very guards assigned to keep me in. Once you perfect this technique, you can control anything or anyone. But, to reach inside someone and control them? Katara asked. I don't know if I want that power. It sounded wrong, so very wrong. The choice is not yours, Hama told her. The power exists. And it's your duty to use the gifts you've been given to win this war. Katara, they tried to wipe us out, our entire culture, your mother. I know. Spirits, did she know? But it still sounded wrong. Then you should understand what I'm talking about. We're the last two waterbenders of the southern tribe. We have to fight these people whenever we can, wherever they are, with any means necessary. That was when she realized that Sokka had been right the entire time. It's you, you're the one who's been making people disappear during the full moons. They threw me in prison to rot, along with my brothers and sisters. She stated, a crazed look beginning to form on her face. They deserve the same. You must carry on my work. I won't. I won't use blood bending, and I won't allow you to keep terrorizing this town. Katara declared, pointing her finger at her. Suddenly, her arm twisted around. She tried to stop it, but it didn't work. You should have learned the technique before you turned against me. Hama made her stand stiff. It's impossible to fight your way out of my grip. I control every muscle, every vein in your body. She began to play around, treating Katara like she was a puppet. Stop, please, she begged as she was forced to her knees with tears in her eyes. Hama only cackled in response. The cackling stopped as Katara forced herself to stand up again, the tears disappearing. You're not the only one who draws power from the moon. My bending is more powerful than yours, Hama. Your technique is useless against me. She declared. She drew water from the ground and threw it at Hama, who returned it. This went on for a few more times, before Hama bent the water out of two trees behind her, which shattered the trees, deflected the attack from Katara and sent it at her. She simply slammed her palm against it, shattering it into droplets, surprising Hama. She took advantage of the surprise by using her waterbending to knock the old innkeeper down to the ground. As she stood up again, Sokka and Aang appeared out of the forest behind her. We know what you've been doing, Hama. Sokka told her. Give up. Aang ordered her as he took a stance. You're outnumbered. No. She replied, standing up from where she fell. You've outnumbered yourselves. She took control of them both, making them go stiff as a board, and sent them at Katara. She dodged them and bent water at Hama. Her response was to bend the water out of another tree, destroying it, and bend it into a wheel of water, blocking her attack. "Katara, look out!" Sokka told her as he unwillingly stood back up and drew his Jien. He swung wildly at her, forcing her back. She knocked him aside with water she bent out of the ground. "This feels weird," Aang declared as he was forced to attack her. She used her water to knock him up against a tree, and then froze him there. "I'm sorry, Aang," she apologized. "It's okay," he assured her. Sokka came back at her, forcing her to destroy a tree by bending the water out of it and knocking him against another tree, freezing his sword hand against it. "Don't hurt your friends, Katara," Hama mocked the young waterbender. "And don't let them hurt each other." She bent them out of the ice and hurled them at each other. "No," she cried as Sokka's Jien was about to pierce Aang. They suddenly stopped and had control over themselves. Hama, however, suddenly stiffened. Katara had no other choice. To save her brother and her friend, she had been forced to use blood-bending on Hama. As the old innkeeper was forced to her knees, everyone heard a howl of a wolf in the air. "Looks like Toph brought a few friends," Sokka remarked as Toph, Akela, and the missing villagers arrived. Hama was soon clasped in irons. "You're going to be locked away forever," one villager declared. "My work is done," Hama said before looking back at Katara. "Congratulations, Katara, you're a bloodbender," she cackled as she was taken away. Katara fell to the ground, crying. Both Aang and Sokka knelt beside her to give her comfort. "I'm sorry, Sokka," she sobbed. "I'm sorry." "It's okay, Katara," he told her. Now wasn't the time to tell her he told her so. He had to be a big brother. "No, it's not," she said, the tears still falling. "You told me the truth and I blew you off, like I always did. I could have seriously hurt someone because of my pride. You and Aang nearly died because I was so arrogant. It's over, Katara." He gave her a hug. "She's gone and she won't be able to hurt anyone where she's going. But it's still my fault. And it would haunt her for the rest of her life. She had nearly killed her own friends and family because of what happened." Azula walked down a corridor, going to her room. It had been a long, fun-filled day and she was tired. "Where's your friend?" Yao Jing asked her, standing against a nearby wall. "That colony trash, where's she at?" "Cory is not trash, Yao Jing," she replied, turning to face her. "You would do well to remember that. You still haven't answered my question. Where is she? Why do you even care?" The last time she had checked, her bastard sister didn't even want to be in the same room as Cory. "You're not really interested in the friends I make." "I'm curious." She left. She went back home. "That's a pity. I was hoping to get to know her better." Her hands covered themselves in blue flames when she heard that comment. "You touch her, you even look at her, and I'll..." "You'll what?" Yao Jing asked with a smug smirk on her face, knowing that she had her little sister. I'll burn your photo of Chun," the princess of the Fire Nation threatened her, only to be suddenly slammed into the wall behind her. Her sister held her there by her neck and was slowly choking her. "You do that, and I will give you a slow horrible death," she snarled. Her eyes were furious and scared. She was scared that the photo would be destroyed. "If I were you, Yao Jing," Naruto said from behind her, the sound of a Jien being drawn echoing through the corridor. "I would let her go unless you want your head flying through the air without your body attached." She let Azula go, letting her fall to the ground. She started to walk away when Azula spoke out, making her stop. "Do you wish you had more time to spend with her? Or so you could get to know her more?" she asked her sister as Naruto helped her up. It doesn't matter and it's none of your business, she told them without turning to face them. She walked away, soon disappearing. Do you really need to antagonize her, Azula? Naruto asked as he put the Jian away. She threatened Kori, she answered as they walked through the hallways to her room. So, you threatened her with Chun's photo? After what they had learned, that was probably not a good idea. It was the only thing I knew that would get to her, the princess of the Fire Nation replied. I didn't think the reaction would be that extreme. Did you forget our conversation this morning? You know the one about the maid? I'm sorry, okay, they fell silent as they entered her room. Before she did anything else, she turned to face her bodyguard. What's wrong, Naruto? He stayed at the door. Why was that letter a forgery? She instantly froze when she heard that question. What are you talking about? I'm not an idiot, Azula, he told her. I know you forged that letter from Mr. Morishita. Now I want to know why. Because. She tried to say it, but was having a hard time. Because. He repeated the word, albeit as a question. She summoned up her courage and finished what she was going to say. I was trying to protect her. You heard what Yao Jing said, and you know what she meant. I wasn't about to let Kori be in trouble because of family politics. I knew that the safest place for her to be right now is at Yudao, at her home. Why didn't you just tell her to leave? He had thought the two of them were friends. She had been looking forward to this trip, and I didn't want to hurt her feelings by making her leave early. I also didn't want her to hate me. That would have hurt her even more than what she had done, she was sure of it. So, you made that letter. To protect her from my family, she said with complete seriousness. And, well, to protect her from the other thing as well. They both knew what that other thing was, but did not speak of it. I see, Naruto said. You did this to protect a friend. Yes, I did. So, you finally managed to find your answer. She nodded. It took me a while. I couldn't really figure it out until after what happened to us in Ba Sing Se. Then it came to me, and I slowly began to figure it out. I finally got it after Ember Island and after I met Chun. So, what is your answer? He knew that she knew it, but he wanted to hear her say it. She took a deep breath and looked him straight in the eye. My friends and my family are important to me. If anyone harms them, that person will know suffering and pain, she vowed. He smiled. I see. Then it's a good thing I sent a messenger hawk to Mr. Morishita, explaining what you did and asking him to play along. He turned around and started to walk away, only to stop and turn around again. Azula, if you consider family important, then will you still follow your father? Leave that to me, she told him, turning to face her room. I'll handle that when the time comes. As you wish. He bowed to her. Good night, Azula. Good night, Naruto. She heard the door close behind her. Yeah, I'll handle it, she muttered to herself with a bit of self-mocking. Like it'll be that easy. Chapter 27, Insomnia and Gifts. Location, Fire Nation. They pushed their way out of the bushes to see koala sheep sleeping the grass. This is it, Sokka said as he looked at the map. The official rendezvous point for the invasion force. How did you pick this place? Toph asked him. All she could see were grassy plains right next to cliffs. Before we split up, my dad and I found this island on the map, he explained. It's uninhabited, and the harbors surrounded by cliffs seemed like the perfect secluded place. Nice choice, Sokka, Katara told her brother as they set up camp. And we're here 4 days ahead of schedule. They had a few days to relax before things became serious again. Wait, 4 days? Aang asked, leaping up into the air and freaking out. The invasion is in 4 days? Sokka yawned. That's 4 days from now. Relax, Aang. He went to sleep the minute his head hit the sleeping bag. Akela slept next to him. Sokka's got the right idea, Aang, Katara said to the air nomad. We're here. We're ready. The best thing we can do now is get plenty of rest. She lay down on her sleeping bag and followed her brother's example. I guess, he agreed reluctantly. He lay down on the ground and tried to go to sleep. The doors to the throne room were knocked down and Aang came in, with a large amount of hair, a headband, and a yellow jumpsuit. Your days of tyranny are over, Fire Lord, he declared, doing poses that would have made any of the Konoha 11 slap him across the face. I'm bringing you down. The supposed Fire Lord, who looked nothing like the actual Fire Lord, put the bundle of grapes he was about to eat and looked at him. Really? He asked. How do you plan on doing that when you're not even wearing pants? He looked down. Sure enough, there were no pants. Oh no, he cried, pulling a cover with the air nomad symbol on it out of thin air. Eyeballs began to appear out of nowhere and looked at him before disappearing. Not having pants isn't your biggest concern right now, a voice from behind him said. He turned around and saw Naruto, Jian out and ready to use. That would be me. Before Aang could say anything, he flew towards the pantsless airbender, swinging his Jian. He awoke with a gasp and furiously checked his pants, making sure they were still there. His actions woke up the resident lemur. It was just a dream, Momo, he said with relief. I still have my pants. He stood up. Well, I better keep training. He walked and started his training, which was basically kicking a bush repeatedly. Momo just went back to sleep. Azula was awake, but was planning on not opening her eyes. She was planning on staying one with her bed. That is, until her sixth sense went off and she rolled off the bed to avoid a knife flying at her. I hate you, Naruto, she growled from the other side of the bed. No, you don't, he replied with a grin from where he stood against the door. Besides, I had to wake you up somehow. You couldn't have just shaken me awake? That would have been a much better alternative to knives. Why would I do that when I can train you at the same time? He walked over to her closet and pulled out some of her clothes. He put them on the bed, went back to the door, and waited, facing the hallway. Azula glared at him briefly before started to change. She could still remember the first time she woke up and there were no servants waiting on her. Naruto had told the servants not to come into her room to dress her. She had yelled at him, demanding who was going to dress her. You have arms and hands, he had told her with a calm voice that she had found infuriating. I assumed you knew how to use them. From that day on, she had dressed herself. She hated doing it at first, but had eventually grown used to it. When Naruto offered to have the servants come back, she said no. When she had finished dressing herself, she looked over at the door. I'm done, she told Naruto. Good to know, he answered, turning to face her. What do you want to do before the party? She thought it over and shrugged. Let's see how Zuko is doing. Lead the way. Katara, Sokka and Toph woke to the sounds of Aang punching a tree repeatedly. Hey, how long have you been up? Katara asked, walking over to him. A couple hours, he answered as he circled the tree, hitting it as he went. I got a lot more skills to refine if I'm gonna fight Ozai. He stopped and started to pant. You know, there is such a thing as overtraining, she remarked. He didn't listen to what she said, he just punched the tree. It made him fall and had all the leaves fall out of the tree on top of him. This made the others look at what was going on. Toph was looking in a different direction. You don't get it, do you? He asked Katara as he got out of the leaves and began to circle her. My form is bad, I'm sloppy and I still don't know any firebending. Not even the basics. His left eye was twitching as he said those last words. The eclipse will block off the firebending, Aang, Sokka pointed out to him. You don't need to know it. That, plus the Fire Lord being completely powerless, gave the advantage to them. Okay. Well, I still have to work on everything else. I better spend the whole day training. He quickly bowed to both Sokka and Katara before running off on an air ball. "This will go on for a while, won't it?" Sokka asked his sister. "I hope not," she replied. "I hear that. But now I have to do something that's probably going to take most of the day." "What's that?" Toph asked. He turned to face Akela, who was still covered in black soot. "Time to give you a bath," he announced. That was one of the few times the members of Team Avatar saw the wolf cringe and have his tail droop between his legs. "Akela, don't make this harder than it has to be," the tribesman said warningly as the wolf began to back away. "You were the one who jumped into the soot. You knew this was gonna happen." The wolf still tried to run, but didn't get far due to the fact Sokka had leapt for him and wrestled him to the ground. It took the combined efforts of Katara, Toph and Sokka to give the wolf a bath. He kept struggling to escape and had almost succeeded twice. By the time they were done, it was time for lunch. Akela's fur was now white again, but he kept glaring at everybody. He finally forgave them when everyone was going to sleep. That was when Aang reappeared. He walked back into camp, yawned and fell to the ground. "Good night, Katara," he said. "Good night, Sokka. Good night, Toph. Good night, Appa. Good night, Momo. Good night, Akela. Good night, Appa and Emo. Go to sleep already." Toph yelled at him. He flinched but followed her instructions. The doors were knocked and Aang stood before them. He snapped his fingers and smoke began to pour in. He ran in and stood before the Fire Lord. "Your days of tyranny are over, Fire Lord. I'm bringing you down." He looked down for a brief moment. "And this time I brought pants." He had indeed brought pants. They were covered in chains and locks. "So, it seems," the Fire Lord remarked. "But are you prepared for your mathematics test?" A giant abacus slammed into the ground behind Aang. "Math test?" he repeated in stunned horror. "Oh no. I forgot all about the math test." "Well, here it is," Naruto said from above. He looked up and all he saw was a Jin coming down at him. He came awake with a gasp. "I gotta be ready," he declared. He got up, walked away from the camp and began training again. This time, he circled a group of sleeping koala sheep. However, his noise woke Katara, and she came over. "Aang, it's the middle of the night," she told him. "You need to go back to sleep." "But I forgot my pants and my math test," he replied, making her confused for a moment. She took a deep breath and stopped him. "Aang, sleep," she told him. "Please, for me." He looked at her. He had bags under his eyes, showing how long he had going without sleep. He nodded in agreement, and she led him back to the camp. Azula knocked on her brother's door. "What is it, Azula?" he asked, opening the door. He was dressed for the day, but looked like he hadn't left his room yet. "I was wondering if I could get a look at my present," she said with an innocent smile on her face. While that smile might have fooled a stranger, it did not fool him. "No. You'll get it at the party tonight." "So, there is a present," she said, the innocent smile disappearing for a triumphant one. "Of course, there is. It's your birthday." "You thought I wouldn't get you a present?" He was right, of course. It was Azula's 15th birthday, and he made sure to get her a present. "That's good to know," Naruto said from where he stood behind the birthday girl. "The one problem I've got is that war meeting." "Let it go already, Naruto," Azula told him without turning to face him. "He knows today's your birthday and yet, he's still having the meeting. If the blonde had a scale of rude things the Fire Lord did, that ranked high." "Wait, what meeting?" Zuko asked, confused by what they were saying. The Fire Paragon looked at him. "You mean you didn't hear?" he asked. "Your father decided to have an important war meeting today." The scarred dragon was surprised by that piece of news. "Why haven't I heard of this meeting?" I didn't get an invitation. Probably because it's so obvious that you should be there, Azula told him, making it sound like she was speaking to an idiot. Azula, be nice, Naruto told her before looking at Zuko again. The meeting's in about a half hour. Why so early? He's not completely inconsiderate. He gestured at Azula. So, will you go, now that you know? The Prince of the Fire Nation thought it over for a moment. The last time I showed myself uninvited to a war meeting, I got myself in trouble. If my father wants me to be there, I'll gladly go. Until then, I'll just stay out of the way. You're sure? The blonde asked. Yes. All right, we'll go now. He and Azula walked away from his door, leaving him alone. I'm surprised, she said as they walked through the halls. I thought he would have started acting like a child when he heard about it. He's grown up, Azula, he replied. He's trying to learn restraint. If he wasn't invited, then he'll accept it. But we both know that father wants him there. It might not have been official, but Zuko was battle-tested and achieved victory. For her father not to have him there would have been stupidity. So, he'll send a messenger to get him, Naruto replied. He knew that the royal flaming asshole would not want to look inconsiderate and stupid to his generals. Wake up, Aang, he heard someone say. Wake up, sleepy-head. He opened his eyes and saw the actual Fire Lord Ozai standing over him. Rise, rise and shine. You overslept. You missed the invasion. The Fire Lord began to laugh, and that was when Aang realized he was riding a flying hippo cow that could breathe fire. He woke up fast. Sokka, get up. I need to know what day it is. He shouted at the sleeping water paragon. What? Who's talking? Sokka asked as he woke up, his hand going for his jian and drawing it. Realizing he wasn't in any danger, he put it back and tried to go back to sleep. Relax. It's still 2 days before the invasion, Toph said grouchily as she and Katara woke up. The blind earthbender was tired and being woken up like this wasn't helping. Sokka, you've got to get up and drill your rock climbing exercises, Aang said, trying to get the tribesmen up. What? He asked, unsure of what he had just heard. In one of my dreams, you were running from Fire Nation soldiers, trying to climb this cliff, but you were too slow, and they caught you. The air nomad explained in a half-panicked voice. That was just a dream, Aang. I'm a good climber, Sokka tried to reassure him, not moving from where he laid. Then climb that cliff. Climb it fast. Aang pointed at a nearby cliff, trying to get his friend to move. No. The sleep-depraved avatar turned around and saw Toph about to drink something. Don't drink that. He shouted at her. She spat it out, hitting Katara with it. Why? Is it poison? She asked while Katara bent the water off. In my dream, we were right in the middle of the invasion, and you had to stop to the bathroom. We died because of your tiny bladder. And you need to start wearing your hair up, he told Katara. In my dream, your hair got caught in a train in OW. He said that last part because Sokka had hit him across the back of his head. Would you calm down? Sokka asked him. This was really getting old. Aang, I know you're just trying to help, but you really need to get a grip. You're unraveling, Katara told him, trying to be reassuring. He took a deep breath to calm down. You're right. I'm losing my mind. He began to pace around the camp, his eye twitching while he played with his fingers. It's like every time I think about how stressed I am, I just end up more stressed. I'm like a big growing snowball of nerves, he finally said after doing that for about 20 minutes or so. Of course you are, Sokka said, looking up from the piece of armor he had started working on for Akela. That's 'cause you gotta fight the Fire Lord, one of the evilest people on this planet. If you don't win, we're done for. Sokka, you're not helping, Katara told her brother. It was this kind of thing that would just make Aang more stressed. What? It's true. That's the deal. He knows it. He stood up as he talked to her. She tried to force him to sit down again, but he swatted her hand away and glared at her. She looked away and walked over to Aang, who was getting more nervous. "You know what?" she said to him. "I've got just the thing. Get ready to be distressed." She led him to a hot spring underneath the ground. These yoga stretches can really work wonders if you do them in extreme heat. Reach up. She placed her hands together and stretched them over her head. Reach for the sun. He followed her example. Feel your chi paths clearing. They stretched side to side before bending down and touching their heads to the ground. Now close your eyes. How are you feeling? I feel really warm, he told her. Good, good. Go on. Like there's this warm feeling all around me. This heat, like I'm in the Fire Lord's palace and he's shooting a bunch of fireballs at me. And the whole world is being engulfed in flames. He began to freak out again. Maybe your stress is the kind you need to talk out, she suggested. This led to him having somewhat of a therapy session with Sokka. So, what is bothering you? Sokka asked him as he rested his head on a koala sheep. The tribesman sat on the grass nearby while Akela lay next to him. You know what's been bothering me, the air nomad replied. I have to face the Fire Lord in a few days. But why are you so afraid of him? You said it yourself. He's the evilest person on the planet. I said that he's one of the evilest people in the world. There's never just one evil person, there are always more. That was something he had learned, and it made him scared. Well, I'm supposed to face this one and save the world. Aang exclaimed, focusing on the present rather than the future. Actually, it's more like just this side of the planet, the tribesman remarked. They didn't even know what was going on in the elemental countries, aside from the two cloaked figures who appeared in Kozan. Okay, but what can I do to feel better? Want to try screaming into this? He offered the avatar a koala sheep. He took it and screamed into the fur. Didn't work? The water paragon asked him. What do you think? He said as he handed the koala sheep back. The meeting was over. Sure enough, Naruto had been right. Ozai had sent Zuko's servant, to get him. So, how did it go? Mai asked Zuko as he exited the chambers. He had told her about the meeting just as Ha had arrived to get him. When I got to the meeting, everyone welcomed me, he said in a slightly surprised voice as they walked away. My father had saved me a seat. He wanted me next to him. I was literally at his right hand. Zuko, that's wonderful, she told him. You must be happy. They stopped and stared at a painting of Ozai. During the meeting, I was the perfect prince, he said, looking at the painting. The son my father wanted. But I wasn't me. And that had scared him. He was beginning to feel like he didn't know who he was anymore. She gave him a hug. Don't let it get to you. She let go of him. Come on, we still have a birthday to attend to. He smiled as they walked away. As they did, Azula and Naruto came out of the chambers. I cannot believe you said that to him. Azula said to her bodyguard as they walked away. It had to be said, he replied, like what had happened was nothing important. You threatened the Fire Lord in his own war meeting. She almost shouted at him, furious at the unusual behavior he displayed at the meeting. It wasn't a threat. It was a warning. And it was one he intended to keep. But, did you have to make it in front of everyone? Yes, he answered firmly. We both know that he's been thinking about it ever since I came here. If I hadn't warned him, he might have actually tried to do it. Think of the two men who came after me in Kozan. Azula nodded as she recalled Itachi and Kisame at Kozan, brazenly announcing in front of both armies that they were after the blonde paragon. Now, multiply that by 1,000, Naruto continued. The shinobi who tried to drag me back are at half of their peak strength. If the Fire Lord had carried out the invasion of the elemental nations, the Fire Nation army would find themselves in a war of attrition that they cannot win. It would be like trying to conquer Ba Sing Se for a good chunk of your childhood. It will take a long time, and the price of the victory wouldn't be worth it. I guess you're right. She gave a small smile. Although I will admit that seeing Yao Jing flabbergasted at what you said was a perk. I'm glad I made you happy. He looked back at the chamber entrance, which still had people coming out of it. Let's go. We don't want to stay around and have a polite conversation with Yao Jing, or the royal flaming asshole. Do you have to keep calling him that? She asked with exasperation. That was her father he was talking about. It's a habit, and one I'm not willing to drop. All right, Toph said to the air nomad. What you need is a good old-fashioned back pounding to relieve yourself. Pound away, Aang told her. He was lying on a bed of pillars. She began to stomp on the ground, bending the pillars to randomly pound into his back. Ah. Ow. Ah. Toph, I think this is bruising me. She stopped pounding, but he literally vibrated off the bed. Sorry, I forgot you have baby skin, she apologized as he sat back up. Well, there's one other thing we can try. She stomped on the ground again and something in the distance flew into the air and landed in her hand. Acupuncture, she declared with a big grin, holding a porcupine in her hand. When Aang heard that and saw the animal in her hand, his legs suddenly found strength again. He decided to do what any sane person would do when offered by a blind girl to a sharp, pointy thing stuck in their body. He ran away screaming. The birthday party had gotten underway, and it was in full swing. People were still coming into the ballroom and offering their congratulations to the birthday girl. This is starting to become annoying, she muttered as she stood where everyone could see her and go to meet her. What do you mean starting? Mai asked beside her. It's not even my birthday and I feel like I want to kill somebody. Mai, you feel like that every time someone is annoying you, Kankuro said. I beg your pardon? She asked, her hand reaching for one of her hidden knives. Mai, could you please not kill my brother? Tamari asked her. We still need him, despite how idiotic he acts sometimes. Hey, I'm not the only one who's done that. He retorted. She had her moments of idiocy as well. Knock it off, you two, Gaara told them without even looking at them. We're in the middle of a party. To have a fight start between siblings in the middle of a party such as this would make them seem quite rude. Sorry Gaara, the two apologized. They were representing the land of wind and Sunagakure here at the party. It would not do to start fight. Personally, I just hope that they don't bring boys to meet you and offer wedding proposals, Ty Lee stated, standing on the other side of Azula. I think I'd be sick just watching them try to impress you. That's not going to happen, Naruto and Zuko said at the same time, making the group look at them. What did you do? Azula demanded with a scowl. She knew they had done something. They shared a look before shrugging in unison. We might have gone to all the noble houses that had teenage sons a couple of days beforehand, Zuko admitted. And we may or may not have threatened them with horrifying deaths if they even thought of proposing to you, Naruto said. He looked at Zuko. Which threats did we use again? Let's see. He thought it over. There was being slowly burned alive. Right, I remember that one. We also used suddenly being drafted. There was the threat of being decapitated with a small, rusty knife. Did we use getting lost at sea? The blonde asked. Yes, and being stampeded by Komodo rhinos. Okay, we get it, Mai said, interrupting them. They used a varied number of threats on any teenaged boys to keep them from proposing marriage. And why exactly did you feel the need to do that? Azula asked them, being extremely annoyed with both her brother and her bodyguard. I could have handled them myself. Actually, it was more along the lines of so we wouldn't have to hear them trying to get you to like them. We agreed that your birthday party should not be a bloodbath, Zuko explained. Thank you for your consideration, she told her brother with obvious sarcasm. Besides, the only way any boy would be able to court me is if they defeated me in an Agni Kai. Going by that statement, Naruto said, his cheeks blushing, the only person who'd be able to marry you is me. This made Azula also blush, and made them avoid eye contact. The rest of the group shared a silent groan. Will these two just admit their feelings already? They thought in unison. This is getting pathetic. Ty Lee saw someone in the crowd. Quick, hide me! She cried, leaping behind Azula's back. Ty Lee? What's wrong? Mai asked her friend. She had never really seen the acrobat act like that. It's my mother and sisters, they're coming this way, she said in a half-panicked voice. Everyone who knew what that meant quickly started looking around for the people in question. Form a line. Azula ordered the group in a whisper when she found them. They all quickly got into a line to hide Ty Lee. It was just in time, too. Princess Azula, my congratulations to you, Ty Lee's mother said as she and the Ty Lee lookalike stood in front of her. I beg your pardon, Princess, but have you seen my daughter? I see 6 of them, she answered with a dry sarcasm, looking at the 6 lookalikes of Ty Lee. Ty Lee, Your Highness. We haven't seen her since she's come back. She's been living with us, she said like it was the most obvious thing. But where is she now? Lookalike number 1 asked her. Yeah, we thought she would have been here, lookalike number 4 said. I think she said something about going back to the circus, Naruto told them. He was trying to get them to leave, but it looked like they weren't getting the hint. Lookalike number 6 snorted. That's just like Ty Lee. She could have done something respectable. Instead, she joined the circus, lookalike number 3 finished. Could she do anything worse? The blonde glared at them. Be glad we're in the middle of a party, otherwise I would have clocked you both upside the head for that insult, he threatened the 2 of them. I'm half tempted to let him, Azula remarked. Their mother understood the threat. Apologize, you two, she snapped at them. Sorry, they apologized, but their faces didn't show a single iota of remorse. Come on, Mom, lookalike number 2 said. It's obvious she's not here. I'm sorry for taking up your time, Your Highness, the mother and the lookalikes bowed and then walked away. Some friend she is, lookalike number 5 muttered, loud enough for them to hear her. Are they gone? Ty Lee asked from behind Azula. Yes, they've left the party, Azula told her, seeing the lookalikes and their mother leaving the ballroom. I guess they just wanted to find you. Sorry guys, she apologized. They've been trying to get me to come back and find a husband. They want you to come back just for that? Temari repeated, incredulous. Assholes, Kankuro swore, throwing a glare at the exit where they had left. If I tried to skewer them to the wall with a knife, would you guys try to stop me? Mai asked the rest of the group. Her expression was murderous and her fingers itched to grab a knife handle. Are you kidding? Temari asked back. I'd give you the knife. Same here, Kankuro agreed. I could hold them down if you want, Naruto offered. I would help, Gaara said. I can see why you left for the circus now, he told Ty Lee. It has done wonders for you. You really think so? She asked, not sure if he meant it or not. Of course I did, Naruto reassured her. She was better off now, being away from her mother and sisters. Night had fallen again, and everyone was pretty much ready to go to sleep. Thanks for everything, guys, Aang said as he sat on the ground and held his legs. So, do you feel less stressed? Katara asked him. Ready for a good night's sleep? I kinda think I sorta might feel a little better, maybe, he offered a little weakly. I guess we're good then, Sokka declared before yawning and laying his head to rest. Both Katara and Toph followed his example. Aang put his down on the ground and closed his eyes. This dream came and went in flashes. First, he was steering Appa through a storm while avoiding a giant Momo. Then he found himself in the Fire Nation royal palace. He saw Toph, who had no eyes, disappearing into the ground before him. He saw Sokka trying to run away, only to be smothered by the earth. He saw Katara surrounded by flames. He went to go help her, but his feet were frozen. The ice spread to his entire body, holding him in place. A fire had taken the shape of Ozai and started laughing. The heat melted the ice and made him fall into water. As he sank, he hit bottom and the world flipped over. The bottom of the water became the layer of ice that trapped him. As he looked through the ice, he saw Zuko standing above him, the comet flying through the sky. Then he found himself standing on a small hill, looking out at a green field with mountains in the background. The comet crashed into the ground and turned everything into a scarred wasteland. As he looked on, he felt a giant burst of pain. He looked down and saw a Jin sticking out of his chest, blood dripping from the blade. "This has all happened because of you," Naruto's voice whispered in his ear. "You should not exist, Avatar." He woke up screaming that woke up everyone, even Appa. "What happened, Aang?" Katara asked him as she, Toph, and Sokka ran over to him. "It's the nightmares," he told them. "They just keep getting worse and worse." "Do we need to talk again?" Sokka asked him. "No, that won't help." "Nothing helps. There's only one thing I can do. I'm going to stay awake straight through the invasion." He started to shake and twitched, making the others look at him like he had lost his mind. Toph just smiled. Knowing there was nothing they could say that would change his mind, all they could was go back to sleep. The next morning, as Katara stood on a cliff face and stretched, he was walking around behind her. "Invasion," he muttered. "All aboard for the invasion." "You don't look so good," she told him, walking over to him. "You sure you can't just lie down for a little nap?" "I told you, I can't go back to sleep," he replied, turning to face her. Why couldn't she see that? "Aang, staying up all night can't be good for you. If anything, it was probably very, very bad for you. Actually, staying up all night has given me time to think. And I've realized some big things, Katara." He looked out at the sea. "What big things?" she asked him, taking a few steps forward. "I see everything so clearly now. What really matters and why I'm really doing this." He turned back to face her. "I'm doing this to save the world. But more than that, I'm doing for the people I love." He walked right up to her. "I'm doing it for you, Katara." "Aang, what are you saying?" "I'm saying, I love you." He kissed her. After being caught off guard, she smiled and returned the kiss. "What are we doing?" she asked in a whisper, breaking the kiss. "What our hearts have been telling us to do for a long, long time. Baby." He dipped her. "You're my forever girl." He puckered up for another kiss. "Aang." Her voice snapped him out of the daydream he was having. "I was just saying you should take a nap." "Oh, I guess I kinda drifted into a daydream," he told her, quickly turning back to face her. "What was your dream about?" Living underwater?" he said, although he made it sound like a question. "Sounds neat." She walked away as he chuckled nervously. Once she was away, he breathed a sigh of relief. That had been a little too close. After everyone had given their congratulations to Azula, it was decided to give the presents. Each family came up to as she sat at the head of the table, Naruto standing at her side. Many gave her a present that was something she didn't want or need. Her father wasn't one to give her a present, she had been expecting that, and neither was Yao Jing. She figured that, if anything, her bastard sister would somehow turn the present into something that'll kill her. Which was why her friends decided to go last in the giving of presents, that way, she had something to look forward. After the last family had given her their present, a gem that had been in their family for 10 generations, a servant stepped forward, holding a roll of paper. Princess Azula, your friend, the Lady Kori, had left this for you. She said that she was sad that she could not give to you personally. He unraveled the paper and showed it to her and to the crowd. It was a painting, done in color of Kori, Azula, Mai and Ty Lee. It had been when they were in Udao. They decided to relax one afternoon in the mayor's garden. As they lounged around, a nearby artist was trying to find inspiration. He saw them and asked them if he could paint them. They agreed and he got to work. He didn't have them pose. He wanted them to go on as they were. Once he was done, he thanked them and left. Before she had left for the capital, Kori had tracked down the artist and asked if she could have the painting. He happily gave it to her once she explained it was for the princess's birthday. The painting showed them lounging in front of a large tree. Ty Lee was sitting on her elbows as she watched the game of pie show that both Azula and Kori were playing. Mai was sitting opposite of Ty Lee and was fiddling with a small knife. Azula and Kori were sitting on opposite sides of the pie show table. Both managed to look focused and relaxed at the same time as they focused on the game in front of them. Azula's arms were crossed, while Kori's right hand hovered above a pie show piece, deciding whether to move it or not. It is a magnificent piece of work, Azula declared as she looked at the painting, remembering that day. I wish Kori could be here, so I could thank her in person for this gift. The servant bowed, rolled up the painting carefully and walked away. The Sand siblings stepped forward. Princess Azula, Gara began. Our gift to you is this. He offered a small statuette of Azula's mother, Ursa, made from sandstone. We know that your mother has disappeared, but we hoped that this would give you a small amount of comfort and would also help you remember her. She reached out and took the statue hesitantly. Ursa's hands were folded together. Her stance was regal, but not cold or rigid. She wore a small smile on her face. As Azula held the statue, the smile seemed to speak of her love and care for both of her children. Thank you, she told the Sand siblings. I will treasure this, for it does remind me of my mother. She handed the statuette to a servant, who carried it away. The Sand siblings stepped away and Ty Lee walked forward. This is my gift to you, Azula. She offered a pair of gloves. I helped make them. It's made from the finest leather in the Fire Nation. She took the gloves and looked closer at them. They were made of black leather and were fingerless. There were holes where her knuckles would go and an open space on the back. The ends would be held closed by use of a button. Thank you, Ty Lee. She tried on the gloves, flexing her fingers to get a feel for them. These are quite striking and are also useful. The acrobat lit up with a brilliant smile. Knowing that hugging her friend right now would have been frowned on, she bowed and walked away. Mai walked forward. My gift to you, Azula, is this. She held a belt, but it wasn't just any belt. It was the belt from the weapons store, the prototype. I saw you making eyes at it and figured you might want it. Both Azula and Naruto smirked as she took the belt. They knew that if she had bought the belt herself, Ozai would have been furious. But if she had gotten it as a gift, there was nothing he could do. Thank you, Mai. I thought you would have brought some daggers with it as well. Mai didn't say anything. She simply stepped aside. Zuko stepped forward, the last in the line. This is my gift to you, Azula, he said. He held a small pillow in his hands and on the pillow rested two identical daggers. I forged them myself from Udao metal. Well, forged one and reforged the other. She took the daggers and looked at them. The blades were straight and double-edged, so one could slash with either edge. Their handles were black and made of leather. They had a crossguard made of simple metal. She then noticed an inscription on one of them. Never give up without a fight, she whispered, realizing where the dagger had come from. It was the dagger that Zuko had gotten when Iroh had broken through the outer wall of Ba Sing Se. It was the dagger that she wanted herself. Now, he was giving it to her as a gift, of his own free will. Then she noticed that the other dagger held an inscription as well. Always remember lesson number 3, she read quietly. She looked quickly at her bodyguard, who gave her a wink. Thank you, Zuko, she said aloud as she placed the daggers in the belt's built-in scabbards. I will be sure to cherish this gift. She stood up and faced the crowd. I thank you for your gifts, she announced to them. Ozai also rose. Now, let us eat. He clapped his hands once as everyone gathered around the tables. Bring in the feast. The doors to the ballroom opened and servants carrying the food came in. Aang was hiding in a bush, waiting in ambush. He leapt out into the open and rolled behind a rock. Put him up, Fire Lord, he declared. His opponent was a tree with the picture he made from noodles, and a target beneath it. He leapt into the air and bent a couple of blasts of air at the target. They flew overhead and hit Sokka, knocking him down. Hey, I'm trying to build Appa some armor here so he doesn't have to go into the invasion naked, he told the sleep-deprived airbender. He's your bison. Ozai's defense is impeccable, he said, ignoring Sokka. I'll have to try a different approach. He leapt into the air and threw about 4 punches of air at the tree. When he landed, he found out that he had missed all 4 times. You think you're untouchable, don't you, Mr. Fire Lord? He accused the tree. Boy, you are really starting to lose it, kid, said a voice from behind him. He turned around and saw Momo. Momo, did you hear something? He asked before turning to check around him. No, but I said something. He turned to face the lemur and saw that was him who was talking. You, my friend, are just a few plums short of fruit pie, Momo told him. He took a step back, shook his head and covered his eyes with his hands. When he opened them again, the lemur was speaking in his normal chitter. That's more like it, he said, briefly patting Momo's head. I'm so tried that for a second there, I imagined you were talking to me. The lemur just cocked his head. Oh, Momo, let me explain. He began to speak like the lemur. While he and Momo were having this conversation, the others saw them. Aang? Katara spoke out, getting his attention. We're all starting to get a little worried about you. You've been awake too long, Sokka stated. And you're acting downright weird. Toph told him. You've got to take care of yourself. You can't go on like this, Appa declared. Nobody seemed to notice that the bison was standing on 2 legs and talking. Aang groaned. Look, I appreciate what you guys are saying. But the stress and the nightmares, they were just too much. Staying awake is the best way to deal with it. Yeah, leave the kid alone. Momo told them, surprising Aang. Hey, who asked you? Appa demanded. They began growling at each other. Aang tried to calm them down. Guys, come on. No. I am sick of this guy always mouthing off and telling me what to do, the sky bison growled. Oh, you don't like it? Momo asked him. Well, let's go right now. Would you two knock it off? Akela asked the 2 of them, finally speaking. What are you going to do? Slug it out like samurai? Sokka, what should we do? Aang asked Sokka, grabbing his shirt. About what? Sokka asked, like he couldn't see what was happening. About that. He pointed at Momo and Appa. Both were dressed up in samurai clothing. Momo wore the fur at the top of his head in a topknot and wore a blue yukata. Appa wore samurai armor that was colored red with an arrow on the helmet. While the lemur was only wielding 1 katana, the sky bison was using 3. Akela groaned. I just had to open my mouth, he groaned. I'm not doing commentary this time. He yelled at the 2 before turning his head to Sokka. Wake me when they're done. Sure thing, Akela, the tribesman replied. The wolf padded away. Meanwhile, Momo and Appa charged at each other, screaming battle cries. Their swords clashed together, and they stayed there, trying to push the other back. Meanwhile, the koala sheep had broken into parties, one for the lemur, and one for the bison. Appa! 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 Cheered one group. Momo! 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 Cheered the other group. The two fighters disengaged and stepped back. Appa split his third into two, and then resting on his tail, he spun into a twister and went at Momo. The lemur was able to block all the sword strikes, which was impressive. Come on, guys, Aang tried to talk to them. We're all on the same side. At that moment, a six-armed and floating on a cloud Guru Puthik showed, waving 2 cups of onion and banana juice and playing a veena. Chakras, chakras, everyone loves chakras, he sang. Chakras, chakras, chakra sandwich taste good. Yum. As Appa and Momo fought, the koala sheep cheered. As they did that, rocks formed like snakes began to slide through the grass, around Aang and then away. The ozai tree started dancing and Aang was surrounded by a ring of rocks and koala sheep while Appa and Momo still fought. That was when he realized the insanity of it all. I just need to jump in a cold waterfall, he declared before running screaming like a loon. That was a good party, Kankuro declared as he, his siblings, and Naruto made it back to the room the Sand siblings had been given. Yes, it was, Temari agreed. The food was great. She had eaten a great deal of tasty stuff at that party. I'll be sure to let the head cook know you thought so, Naruto told them with a smile on his face. We can let him know ourselves tomorrow, she replied as she flopped onto one of the beds. Plus, I can't wait to see how Azula does with those new knives of her, Kankuro said with excitement. When he heard those words, Naruto flinched. What is the matter, Naruto? Gaara asked him, noticing the flinch. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. I need you guys to do something for me, he told them, opening his eyes again. What is it? He pulled out one of the seal tags teams Asuma, Kurenai, and Guy had brought with them. I need you to go home. They were shocked to hear him say that. What? Why? Temari asked. This isn't your war, he answered with complete seriousness. I thought the war was over, Kankuro said, still not believing that he had heard what he had thought he heard from the blonde. The paragon of the Fire Nation shook his head. Just because the Fire Nation took Ba Sing Se, doesn't mean the war is over. Tomorrow, the Avatar will be visiting us with a few of his friends. How do you know this? Gaara asked him. That's classified information. He wasn't going to say anything else about it. But we can still help you fight them, the Kazekage said in protest. Gaara, if Ba Sing Se hadn't fallen, you would have been fighting alongside the Avatar tomorrow, as well as the Konoha shinobi, the blonde pointed out. He had been glad to prevent that, as he really didn't want to fight them. We're your friends, Naruto. Why are you refusing our help? Temari demanded. It's because you're my friends that I'm refusing. This isn't your war, guys. This isn't your responsibility. You should go home while you can. He gave them a small smile. Vacations have to end, right? We're not going to leave you to fight this alone, Naruto, Kankuro declared to him. We will help you. No, you won't. And if you won't leave willingly, I'll make you leave, he said in reply, quietly threatening them. Very well, Naruto, Gaara said, surprising his brother and sister. We will go home. It's time I went back to my duties as Kazekage. The blonde was right. Vacations had to end. Thank you, Gaara. He handed the redhead the tag. The Sand siblings stood around the tag as it was placed on the ground. Will you come to visit? Gaara asked him. Probably not, he answered with a shake of his head. The more he thought about it, the more he knew that it was a bad idea to go back to the elemental countries, even if for a visit. Then we will come visit you again. No, don't do that. Just stay there, please, he practically begged his friend. This side of the world has enough trouble with the Avatar and the royal flaming asshole. We don't need Shinobi thrown into the mix. Very well. As his siblings gathered around him, and he focused on the seal, he heard Naruto walked out of the room. Goodbye, brother, the Kazekage said in a whisper. Naruto walked down the corridor. He didn't look back, but he heard the sound of a poof. He kept on walking, but he had heard the whisper. As he walked back to the camp, Aang saw what looked to be a bed of clouds in front of him, cradled by mist. He walked up to it and started testing it, making sure it was real. Oh look, another hallucination, he said, not believing what he saw. An imaginary bed made out of clouds. Hey, it's real. We spent hours on it. Toph told him. Both Katara and Sokka stood next to her. We made for you. A good night's sleep will probably take the crazy away. We hope, Sokka said as he stood next to a group of shaved koala sheep. Look, you guys keep telling me I need to sleep, but I can't. Aang told them angrily. The invasion's tomorrow. Aang. Katara began, only to have him cut her off. No, Katara. There's still so much I haven't learned. I don't need sleep. What I need is practice. Quick, hit me. He started to wobble as he tried to take a fighting stance. I'm not going to hit you, she told him. You want me to do it? Toph offered, only to have Sokka nudged her in the back. The waterbender walked closer to him. Listen to me. You've been training for this since the day we met. I've seen your progress. You're smart, brave, and strong enough. You really think so? He asked. She nodded. We all do, Sokka told him with complete confidence. You can do this, you're ready. You're the man, Twinkle Toes. Toph agreed. Thanks, guys, he said with a smile. He gave a big yawn and rubbed his eye. Katara helped him lay down on the bed. You know what? I think I am ready. He declared as he fell asleep, the others watching him. The doors were knocked down and Aang flew towards the faux Fire Lord, sword in hand. Your days of tyranny are over, Fire Lord. He declared. Really? Asked the faux Fire Lord. You're going to take me out? You're not even wearing pants. He smiled smugly. No, Fire Lord Ozai. You're not wearing any pants. He looked down and saw no pants. Pulling a cover with the Fire Nation symbol on it out of thin air, he held in front of his nether regions. No. My royal parts are showing. He said, screaming. Aang looked around and saw no sign of Naruto. In the real world, he had a smile of victory on his face. Azula sat in front of her mirror. Dressed in a sleeping robe, she had let her hair out of her bun and was brushing it, one of the few pleasures she allowed herself. She heard the door open and knew it was Naruto. Where did you go? She asked, not turning to face him. I saw the Kazekage and his family off, he replied. Will they be coming back? No. A shame. I like them. She continued brushing her hair. The silence between them went on for a couple of minutes. Did you enjoy the party? He finally asked her, a curious tone in his voice. I did, she answered, putting the brush down. Then why does it sound like you're both mad and disappointed? He could tell that just from her voice. I don't know, she replied. Maybe it's because my bodyguard didn't give me a present. I was wondering what he was going to give me. She had been wondering that for the last couple of days. He laughed when he heard that. Don't worry. He got you a present. It was just something he wasn't going to show in front of her father. Now she was curious. What is it? He walked up behind her. Close your eyes. She did so. She heard something moving and then felt something cool against her chest. Now, open them. What she saw took her breath away. Hanging around her neck was the same beautiful green crystal he wore. "Happy birthday, Azula," he said. "It's beautiful," she said in a whisper. She didn't know what else to say. It was simply beautiful. "And so are you," he replied. Turning around, he started to walk away. "Wait," she said, standing up from where she sat and turning to face him. "What is it?" he asked, turning back to her face. She stood in front of him. Her hands slowly reached for the belt at her waist. Untying it, she let go and grabbed the edges of the robe near her neck. She pulled the robe off, letting it slide down her arms and down to the ground, leaving her wearing nothing but her present. To say Naruto was stunned would have been an understatement. What the? He tried to think but couldn't. "Way to go, Gaki." The Kyuubi cheered from inside his cage. Before he could even reply to the fox, Azula walked right up to him and kissed him hungrily on the lips. This sent them crashing down onto the bed, with Azula on top of him. "Oh, no way is a host of mine going to be on the bottom," the fox declared before sending a tiny amount of his chakra to Naruto. With a savage growl, he flipped Azula, making her land on the bed and pinning her hands there. They stared at each other as he hovered over her. Golden eyes investigated Blue's one and vice versa. He began to kiss her, hungrily devouring her lips. She returned with equal passion and the room filled the sounds of heavy kissing and small pants. He let go of her so that he could explore of her chest, letting his hands know every inch of it. She quickly untied the cloth belt, letting the vest fall open and opening his shirt, freeing his chest. Her hands began to roam around it, her brain almost begging her to know what it felt like. She began to stroke her finger around one of his nipples, making him shiver and groan. Seeing her victorious smile, he got back at her by finding a particular spot on her back. He pressed down, making her arch her back and gasped, which he took advantage of by invading her mouth. As his hands trailed down to her hips, he suddenly stopped. "What's wrong?" she asked. "We shouldn't do this," he replied. Taking his hands off her hips, he stood up and stepped away from her. She sat up. "Why shouldn't we?" It felt right to her. "We just can't, Azula. I'm your bodyguard." That was all he could be. "I don't care," she shouted, surprising him. "I love you." He fell quiet. "I know you do, but I just..." He struggled to say the words, but they wouldn't come out. "I'm sorry." He closed his shirt and vest, and left the room. Azula watched him leave. "No, I'm sorry," she whispered. She threw herself into her pillow. "I shouldn't have done that," she repeated to herself as she cried into the pillow. That had been so stupid of her. What in the name of everything and anything holy is wrong with you? The fox bellowed at him as he walked down the corridor. "That girl stripped naked in front of your eyes, all but jumped your bones, and you walk away." "That shouldn't have happened, Kyuubi," he replied, trying to focus on where he was going. The corridor was thankfully empty, so he could speak to the fox aloud. And yet, it did. "With your help," he accused the Biju. "I felt your chakra." He was horrified that he had allowed the fox's chakra to use him so. "I was trying to help you." "For the love of Kami," she said, "she loved you and you walk away?" When did Naruto Uzumaki become a coward? The Kyuubi demanded. "I'm not a coward. You walking out of that room says otherwise." "I had to do that." "No, you didn't, you just ran away from her like you do with everything else. You pushed the Sand siblings away, and now you pushed her away." "I pushed her away to keep her safe," he shouted. If he said the words aloud, they would have rushed down the corridor before him. "What do you mean?" the fox asked once the echoes had faded away. He wasn't sure about what the blonde was talking about. "Think about it, Kyuubi. What would people think if someone saw us sleeping together? Naruto asked. That kind of news would definitely reach Ozai's ears, and if not him, it would reach Yao Jing. And she would take to him with embellishments. What do you think Ozai will do if he found that his daughter had slept with her bodyguard, one of the few men in the Fire Nation that doesn't obey his every command? No doubt he would try to have me killed and have her severely punished. Then Yao Jing would use the opportunity to have Azula killed. I refuse to admit my feelings for her, so that doesn't happen. I can see what you're talking about, the Biju admitted. But didn't you ever think about what she thought? No, and that's probably what led to this. He took a deep breath to steady himself and lose his anger. Look, we have more things to worry about than my personal problems. We need to focus what needs to be done. They passed a balcony which gave them a look at the weather. Looks like there might be a storm coming in, the QB commented. In case you haven't noticed, QB, this side of the planet has been in a storm for the past century, Naruto said back, walking past the balcony. No, I think this is a different storm, the Biju thought to himself. That's it for this reading. Hit like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfictions. Looking forward to having you on board again.